Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. We're live, 3 p.m. Eastern Time here on NBA Trade Deadline Day, and the deadline has passed. Now, on some occasions, of course, even after the trade deadline passes, there is still an opportunity for some transactions to go through. We see that sort of thing on a year-to-year basis, but I think as of right now, unlikely, very, very, very unlikely we see anything else from a Toronto Raptors perspective. It looks like the Raptors have finished their business, and in fact, finished their business for the trade deadline yesterday in their acquisition of Trayce Jackson-Davis. The Raptors kind of had fans thinking a little bit today when RJ Barrett was ruled out due to injury management, and it was kind of like, well, maybe there's some smoke there, and maybe if there's smoke, there's fire. But it turns out RJ Barrett, the player who was injured recently and is now, this is going to be a second night of back-to-back for the Raptors, made logical sense for the player to be out for injury management purposes. There were some rumblings today about, the Sabonis trade being back on. 2 days ago, the Sabonis trade was definitely picking up steam. Yesterday, those rumors fell flat, and there was no steam on the Sabonis front. And then today, all of a sudden, they started to pick back up. Again, I think a large portion of that was fueled by the Raptors electing to leave RJ Barrett out of the team for today. Always felt to me like this year, RJ Barrett injury management, I saw that, and the probability of a trade certainly increases when a player is suddenly ruled out. And it felt like something could materialize there, but always felt to me that it probably was going to be nothing. But maybe it could have led to something. In the end, it doesn't lead to something. So the Raptors, for NBA trade deadline, for trades this season, they have elected to duck the tax by trading Ochai Agbaji away and attaching a second-round pick in order to do that. And then they used an additional second-round pick to acquire some depth for their front court by acquiring Trayce Jackson-Davis from the Golden State Warriors. That is the extent of what the Raptors accomplished at the NBA trade deadline. So we're going to cover those moves. We're going to cover the importance, or potentially maybe lack of importance, towards those moves and those moves towards the team. And then we're going to discuss if this was enough. If this was enough for the Raptors before going into the outlook for the rest of the season. So, again, 2 trades in mind as we go through today's stream. If you have any questions, please leave them in the chat. If you enjoy what you see from the stream today, take a second to hit that like button. It makes a big difference to the channel, helps drive us up in the YouTube algorithm. Thursdays, I have extremely busy days with my day job. I got permission to take an hour off to do this stream today. So I'm very busy after this. So I would appreciate a little bit of extra support today. If you enjoy what you see, hit the like button to let me know you're rocking with what I do. And subscribe for more Raptors content. It's been a bit of a mismatch of content this week with NBA trade deadline. But typically I'm live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time to cover Raptors news. And I'm live for Raptors watch-alongs. And I'll be live tonight as the Raptors take on the Chicago Bulls. So, again, 2 trades in question. I would have said coming into trade deadline that the Raptors needed to solve 3 things. Number 1, they needed to duck the tax, and it felt like that was the most important thing that the Raptors wanted to handle. Number 2, I said they needed to add in some depth to their front court and hopefully bring in somebody there who can protect the rim and rebound and give the Raptors some size. That was the second most important thing. That was probably the most important thing for me, though, because I don't care about, billionaires paying a bit of extra tax. Raptors, though, they wanted to duck tax. Third thing they needed to address at the trade deadline was bring in some additional shooting. That always felt quite far-fetched and really difficult to achieve, so I'm not really surprised that they didn't address that. They absolutely addressed the first thing there. They ducked the tax by trading away Ochai Agbaji, and they do enough there to actually make room for a cheaper acquisition like Trayce Jackson-Davis, which kind of half solves that secondary priority for the Raptors, which was bringing in depth to the front court position. Yes, it does bring depth to the front court position. Trayce Jackson-Davis is a solid player for a Darko Rajakovic offensive system, a good pick-and-roll player, a decent enough passer for the position, can play within the flow of the offense. I kind of see it there. Defensively, He's not a bad defender. He's not a great defender. He's not bad. He's okay at protecting the rim. He is a decent rebounder, especially considering his size there. And it's another body to just throw into, the fire going up against. It's been really taxing against the likes of Scotty, CMB, and Mamu in this stretch, going up against these really physical teams. You have another body to throw into that mix there to take some of the damage, to take some of the punishment I've seen it referred to. So solid overall there, but just doesn't quite satisfy what Raptors fans were looking for as far as 7-footers were concerned. Now, the issue with kind of the discontent I see with this trade here is that we don't know exactly like what the Raptors were trying to do behind the scenes, but we're getting some evidence that suggests that they were looking for one of those more traditional sort of 7-footers. They were looking for one of those higher octane sort of players, I guess we'll label it, that you guys were interested in, and partially I was interested in as well. Apparently, they had looked at New Orleans' Yves Missy. They had looked at Day'Ron Sharpe from the Brooklyn Nets. I always felt he'd be too expensive. And they actually also did look at Goga Bitadze, who was my number one option for the trade deadline. But the asking price for those guys was a first rounder. I mean, definitely. That wouldn't have been worth first round picks to go after those guys. There's a lot of value in holding your own first round picks, especially for this season. And I'd much rather take a gamble on a first round pick where we have the choice of selection, a player that we want to develop, rather than going for one of these players. So it's not always essentially about what the Raptors did. Sometimes you have to wonder what they didn't do. And sometimes the better move is not making a move, because would you rather the Raptors do something for the sake of it? Because I see tweets for the last 48 hours saying, Bobby Webster, please do something. Raptors, do something, please. Sometimes it's better to not do anything. Losing a first-round pick would have been a pretty poor use of assets, I believe, to go after a player like that. Though they would have helped the team for this season, you have to understand the long-term outlook of this decision as well. Instead, the Raptors, they have traded away a 2026 second-round pick via the Lakers, who, that's going to be a draft pick in the late 40s, early 50s. That's going to be a late second-round pick. And we have a player who can help us a little bit with our depth and help us a little bit with our rotation out of that pick. It's tough for me. It's really, really tough for me to perceive this as a trade that doesn't add value to the Raptors. This to me is a positive move, bringing in Trayce Jackson-Davis. I covered Trayce Jackson-Davis pretty extensively last night. Right after the trade happened, I went live and talked about it. But I've spoken about it a little bit here, but he's a cheaper player. He's making less than $3 million for this year and for next season. Decent guy to have within your rotation. I kind of listed all the positive there. Good energy guy that I actually kind of believe Raptors fans will like because of the energy that he brings to the team. There are concerns around his finishing. Not the most efficient player. He's a very interior-centric big, despite the fact that he's 6'9" and he's a bit undersized for the position, which, again, can lead to some difficulties there. But what did the Raptors give up to get him? A Lakers second-round pick. I'm not going into a restaurant with $10, $15 and expecting to come out with like a prime rib. You went in with a Lakers second-round pick and you got a guy that seems to be serviceable towards your rotation. I consider that positive news, I'd say, for the Raptors, and could have been a lot worse there. As for the other news that we saw today, confirmation coming in now that nothing is going to happen here, though, kind of seemed like that was the case. Jake Fisher confirms that there will be no Domantas Sabonis trade. He is going to be staying with Sacramento. There was a little bit of smoke to that story today, but ultimately, again, it ends up with nothing. I was teetering on the fence, probably more teetering towards thinking it would have been a positive move for the Raptors if the framework was what we kind of described on a recent stream, which was the Raptors sending RJ Barrett to the Kings along with another player, cheaper player. I thought it'd be Ochai Agbaji. Raptors received Domantas Sabonis from the Kings, and a third team is in to absorb the Jakob Poeltl contract and gets 2 first-round picks from the Raptors in order to take on that contract. That didn't materialize for one reason or another. Maybe the Raptors were hung up on giving 2 first-round picks there. Maybe the Kings wanted more than 2 first-round picks. I'm not sure. Maybe they couldn't find a third team that was willing to take the Poeltl contract and facilitate the deal taking place. whatever the story was, the trade doesn't materialize, and RJ Barrett almost like somehow survives the trade deadline from the Raptors. They have been really trying to trade him for over a year now and have been unable to do so. So sticking with the team, I don't think that's necessarily negative. Like, RJ Barrett's been good for the Raptors this season. They've played well when he's in the lineup. He had a really rough finish in that recent game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, but he's had a good season as a whole, and the Raptors seem to be better when he does feature. They're clearly a better team when he plays versus when he doesn't play, and their offense looks a lot more competent when he's out there. So, as far as, again, the Trayce Jackson-Davis move, I'm fine with it. I'm content. I said it yesterday after the trade. Like, if this is it for the Raptors, I'll be content. I'll kind of wish they did something a little bit more, but they haven't been fleeced on assets there. They haven't overpaid for anyone. It kind of sucks to have to attach a second-round pick to get off of Agbaji when you traded, granted, a really, really late. I think it was the very last pick of the first round in order to get him and Kelly Olynyk a couple years ago. It was a pretty good bet on Agbaji. It just hasn't worked out, and there's not really a solid place in rotation for him. And it was a expiring salary that helped us duck the tax, and we replaced that roster position with Trayce Jackson-Davis, which I think is an improvement for the roster overall. So where the Raptors now kind of need to go from here, we've seen it's been pretty obvious in the last week or two where the problems lie for the Raptors. Part of it is on defense, part of it is rebounding. Part of it's shooting, and part of it's half-court offense. Nothing they have done here has satisfied any of those issues with the team. So we're still going to be facing the effects of those issues for the rest of the season. At the same time, the teams in and around the Raptors in the standings, Raptors now the 6th seed in the East, 3 games up on the 7th seed Heat. The teams in and around the Raptors have looked to upgrade here. The Pistons have upgraded, the Knicks have upgraded, the Celtics have upgraded, and the Cavaliers have upgraded. Sixers started to play better. They've won 5 games in a row as well. Raptors in a little bit of a rut, losing 3 at the last 4. So we've seen a lot of these teams upgrade around us. The Raptors really haven't upgraded for themselves. So again, people kind of look like, do we want to be competitive in this Eastern Conference? What are we doing here? We should have done something more aggressive. There's a case to be made on that end, but you could also look at it, the front office sees the picture of the Eastern Conference right now. They may not have enough faith in the roster as is in order to make that sort of leap and try and really contend in the East. So they could figure that it's better for the long-term future of the team to conserve the assets and look to find improvements to the roster and address the needs of the roster in the offseason. Now, where there can be a bit of rebuttal towards that is, well, we do this every year, seemingly. Well, not really. I mean, the Raptors are typically active on trade deadline days. Like, there's the acquisition of Brandon Ingram. There's an acquisition of Thaddeus Young. There's an acquisition of Jakob Pearl. The Raptors typically are pretty active around the trade deadline. So, they have made moves, and they have been aggressive in the past. Some of these moves, though, have come back to bite them in losing those assets. And a lot of times when they do want to wait until the offseason to work on issues with the team, they still don't really get stuff done in the offseason. But trade deadline as a whole, like if I had to grade it for the Raptors, probably like a C. Like, it's not like a failure of a trade deadline, but it really was the bare minimum. They got close to like the bare minimum as far as front court depth is concerned. They got at front court depth, and they got a player that I think, will be a decent fit with the team in limited minutes. And they ducked the tax, but not a whole lot of action that's like inspiring to the fan base. So for me, I'll have to give it a C, but I'd love to hear what you guys would grade the move like this in the chat. I'll start to get some questions here. I appreciate you guys coming through and hanging out with me this afternoon for this trade deadline special. We'll talk about some of the other trades that happened today as well around the NBA, and I'll give my thoughts there. But we've got Mishy Green, Steve Stevens, Nancy H., Josh Ramon, Tony, Aaron Fernandez, Sky Watkins, Steve Stevens, Mr. Snow, Andre the Gamer, Alex Lee, Gordon Harry, Mins0127, Cyan Soul, Nick R, Skay on Addy, if I said that right, Jade Urich, The Real Foil, a lot of the names I recognize from some of the other content that we do. Thanks for coming through, hanging out with me. Again, reminder, I'm taking time off my busy work schedule today. Please take a second to hit the like button. Would really appreciate that. Subscribe if you're new, because I do tons of Raptors content right here on the channel. Okay, so a lot of questions about what Bobby's doing. Hopefully, I've answered a lot of them. In short, I feel like Bobby didn't want to lose assets for people he didn't lose like key assets like first-round picks for people he didn't believe offered significant benefit for the team long-term. So, for me, it's fine. We didn't do anything dumb. We didn't do anything, we didn't like do anything overly, smart. We didn't make a smart move, but sometimes a smart move is making no move. He didn't hamper us. He didn't set us back with any decisions today, which previous trade deadlines, you could argue, have set us back with some of the poor decision-making and over-aggressiveness from the front office. So, again, what is he doing? Thinking about conserving assets for the long term. Didn't see a move he liked. I'd rather no trade than a bad trade. People say we did nothing. We didn't do nothing because evidently we made 2 trades yesterday, right? Here's the issue. We're not bad enough to get a good pick. We're not good enough to contend. They were winning this year. Why not go out and get pieces? Because even if they were to go out and get pieces, like you said, you need to be either good enough to contend or bad enough to get a good pick. You could go out and acquire those pieces that you're speaking of and still not be good enough to contend, and now you also don't have those assets available. I would assume that is the thought process of what the Raptors were doing here. They didn't feel like the move was going to make them that sort of contender. I think it's okay to win basketball games too, by the way. I think it's okay it's okay to win games for a while and try to make your team better and try to improve internally and get up to that contention status. It's not like it hasn't worked for the Raptors previously where they've achieved this. They grew within and slowly added pieces bit by bit, and there wasn't some outrageous trade where they gave away 3-4 first-round picks to all of a sudden be a super team contender. Like, it was bit by bit. That's not always the formula for success. Granted, that's not always going to be the perfect scenario there, but it's really difficult to just be a tanking team year after year after year. Then all of a sudden, okay, you know what? We're a contender now. Sometimes these things take time, and I think the Raptors are making a lot of strides in the right direction. Think about the growth of Scottie Barnes this season. I think we can operate with a much fuller sense of what he can be for this team and what he can be as the best player on a really good team, because he's the Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's an all-star. I think if things continue, he's a really, really large candidate to make an all-NBA team. That's a player you can really build with going forward, and we've learned that from this season. We've gotten that development with him this season that we maybe wouldn't have gotten with him had it been another tanking season. Sometimes it's okay to win basketball games. Trace Jackson doesn't move the needle at all. I didn't necessarily say he does, but it provides some additional help to the front court issues, which was needed. Does it make the Raptors a larger favorite to win an NBA championship? It does not, but it helps the team. And it costs the Raptors a late second-round pick to do it. Like I said, I don't go into a restaurant with $15 trying to get prime rib. You get what you pay for in that instance. And it felt like fair value to me. Okay, I'm going to skip through a bit because a lot of the questions at this point I've answered with what I've done in the stream so far. No shooting, no 7-footer deal with Embiid, nor Vooch. Way to go, Bobby. So again, the 7-footers we were targeting cost first-round picks. Was it worth trading a first-round pick to be able to use a backup center against the likes of Nikola Vucevic, as laid out here, or Joel Embiid? You can make your own, you can, come up with your own opinion on that. To me, didn't feel like it was worth losing a first-round pick in order to make that happen. And it seems the Raptors kind of felt the same way there. Always good to save money, get depth at power forward center. You play Scottie more at small forward. For sure, that helps out. I didn't see Cam Thomas got waived. Certainly the idea of Cam Thomas is better than Cam Thomas playing basketball, actually playing basketball for your team. People are questioning if that's like a buyout candidate for the Raptors, for example. I disagree. Like, not the right sort of fit for the team. Team that's like promotes hard work, defensive stability. Don't think that really fits with us. Just another like hand to feed for the ball. I don't think that's quite a good fit for the Raptors. If people are questioning if that's something that could happen. Don't forget we had a great deadline. Bobby Westbrook could have done something really stupid, but he didn't. That's a win. I wouldn't call it a great deadline, but we definitely can't call it a bad trade deadline. Again, sometimes it's better to not make a bad move. And trading a first-round pick for Yves Missi, I think, would have been a bad move. Like, I saw somebody complaining about, not that it's the same case for Daron Sharp or Goga Bitadze, but Yves is actually an even worse finisher than Trayce Jackson-Davis. And he's a lot bigger, which should make it easier. But, again, first-round picks, it didn't make sense to lose a first-round pick there to have a backup there. Really what, for the playoff, like, larger outlook on the season, the East got better. I think it's going to be quite difficult for the Raptors to compete for a top 5 seed the rest of the way, as the East kind of strengthens around it. They're winning games right now. A lot of potential postseason success in terms of winning a playoff series, which I would consider a postseason success for this group. A lot of that kind of hinges on Jakob Poeltl's availability for the rest of the season. He's been doing work. We've seen the videos. Looks to be getting healthier. But he hasn't had, in my eyes, one healthy game this season. And we are hearing some real nightmarish horror stories about his back in he's missed 25 games in a row. We've been hearing a lot of horror stories about the state of his back and that injury. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm not a doctor, but a lot of it doesn't look promising. That's for sure. Hopefully, though, it is promising, and he is getting better, and if he is better, we have that 7-footer that we're looking for, and a very good one at that. One is a lot better than the names that we are floating around with in discussions towards that trade deadline. Should have traded Yak and CP3 for Drummond and Lowry. Drummond makes nowhere near the money that Jakob Poeltl makes, so it would have been pretty much impossible to get that trade done. Also, Sixers would have no interest in Poeltl's contract, so that's not something that could have happened. Also, Lowry would be fun, but losing Chris Paul gave us the flexibility where we can make a move like the one for Trayce Jackson-Davis, and I think we still have a roster spot available for 10-day guys, if I'm not mistaken. I think we had a roster spot available. We traded Abaji, and now we have Jackson-Davis. I think we still have a roster spot available if Raptors want to get a look at somebody. For now, I think the biggest issues are on the coaching front and winning games. A little bit, like yesterday's game, kind of looking back on that fourth quarter. Why was there one single second of basketball where one of Barnes or Ingram weren't on the floor? Why would they both be off the floor in the fourth quarter of a game? It probably took them a little bit too long to use a timeout in the fourth quarter as the Timberwolves are making a run. To be honest, it felt like one possession late at least. And in that possession, the Timberwolves hit a 3 to cut the lead down to 3. A lot of reliance on Brandon Ingram in the half court. He hasn't been producing as much in fourth quarters as some of the other earlier games this season, so he hasn't been able to bail you out. But the offense can't just be give the ball to Brandon Ingram and pray. They need to do a better job of sometimes scheming looks. They had, granted, that was bad against the Magic. They actually had some looks into Timberwolves. Shots didn't fall, and those turnovers from the 2 from Barrett and the 1 from Shed were absolutely back-breaking turnovers for sure. But felt like coaching could have been a lot better in those 3 losses. Felt like fourth quarter play from the team on the court could have been better. Absolutely. And a lot of things need to be addressed there. Sure, we have limitations, and you can look at the front office and say we have these limitations that weren't addressed, but also, we know what the roster, what we have from a roster perspective, and we have to work around those things. So we don't have those players. So what can we do to be better with what we have? That's what should be looked at right now. we talk about how the Bulls trade for like 10 guards? We can. I don't know what they're cooking in Chicago, but one of them's got to be good, right? One of them's got to be good. We'll go through the whole day of trades. I'll go through a little bit more of the chat. Then we'll go through the day of trades and just kind of talk about what we've seen there. Well, Walter, Grady, and RJ better hit their threes. I won't hold my breath. Yeah. Not a lack of shooting for sure. That hasn't been addressed. Getting shooting is really tough, as Raps have found out. Tough to do that mid-season. At a certain point, like, you can't just say it's tough and, like, as front office, you have to get it done. Felt really difficult for Raptors to be able to accomplish this during the season. Again, if it goes for another offseason not addressing it, that's where I think, like, real frustrations should start to arise for Bobby Webster. I'm nowhere near fire Bobby, but he's obviously got to do more with the team in the offseason to bring in this stuff. Now that we know and we can trust Scotty Barnes, we know the team is quite good. It's time to really, like, give them the tools to succeed, I believe. Nick Richards cheaper than I thought. To be honest, Nick Richards wasn't moving me. I think that's we've got in a player who helps us more with Jackson Davis. Not that it's a high bar to clear with Nick Richards, but a little bit better. Can Chris Paul useful to us? No, he's not reporting. The Raptors are going to waive him. Free up that roster spot. Orlando getting Cam Thomas. I'm not sure any good team should really be on the hunt for Cam Thomas. I don't know. Clearly a capable player capable of scoring, but can he do that for in a winning system? Can he scale down his role and be effective? Can he be a participant on defense? I don't know. I don't think there'll be a lot of higher end teams kind of motivated to bring him in. Chris Paul could be a decent backup point guard to facilitate the ball, whip the guys into shape. Kind of talked about this on the watch long yesterday, but for Chris Paul, do they want to cut into the minutes of Quickly and Shed? Probably not. I'd rather play both. I'd rather play those guys. Is Chris Paul somebody that you want around your team? Not there's some evidence against Chris Paul as being like a veteran you want to have around, to be honest. So I can understand why the Raptors are just going to pass and move on without him. I don't think he would have been like, okay, like we have him when we need him when we need to use him. Veteran presence, but I don't know. Feels like a player that wasn't doing anything for us, really. Yeah, Chris Paul's not stepping foot in Toronto. It'll be a funny little pub trivia down the line. Chris Paul being a Raptor at one point in time. Do I think Mo Bamba will come back? It's possible. They do have that option. Fire Bobby and Jay. What did I do? Fire me? What did I do? Should have traded this year's first for Sabonis. They probably would have if they could have. It would have costed more than one first-round pick to get Sabonis. And it's possible even two wouldn't have worked. CP3 retiring. It's already announced he won't suit up. It doesn't necessarily mean he's retiring. It's entirely possible he'll sign with a different team. I could see a team signing him. I could see a team signing him to in the buyout market for sure. Okay, made it through the chat. Another reminder. I keep on telling you, but please take a second to hit the like button. It does go a long way to helping out the YouTube channel. Okay, let's talk about the trades that happened today. So some of the bigger ones, I suppose, we'll try and go through here. There wasn't really any huge action today. Why isn't Trace Jack Davis injury report? Because the trade probably isn't official from a NBA and Raptors perspective as of yet. Shams reporting it doesn't make it official under NBA terms. This means it's going to happen. So let's go through the trades from today. Oh, yeah, you know what? There was a big one today. I take that back. There was a big one here. Ivica Zubac traded to the Indiana Pacers incredible what a week does. Like the Clippers were turning it around. They are on course to really being a contender, I think, in the Western Conference. And within a few days, James Harden is gone and Ivica Zubac is traded. Now, if they were going to push for this Ivica Zubac trade, I'm a little stunned that, not stunned, but like my advice to the Clippers would have been, if you're imploding like this, Kawhi's got to go. Kawhi's got to get traded. I can't see Kawhi's value increasing. This is like the highest Kawhi's value is ever going to be for as long as he's with the Clippers. It might have been a good opportunity now while he's playing so well to trade him, especially if you're now going to be probably missing the playoffs and you should look to bottom out a little bit. As for the return here, I am a bit surprised it was only 2 first-round picks. I thought it would be 3. That being said, Ben Mathurin is not nothing. I think Ben Matherin's career will probably fizzle out soon. We'll see. Maybe he can find a home somewhere. Not sure it'll be the Clippers. Isaiah Jackson is a guy, but 2 first-round picks seems a little light. I thought it would be 3, especially considering not the greatest of picks. The first-round pick for this year is top 4 protected, which, you know what? That pick could spill out of the top 4, and all of a sudden the Clippers have a top 4 pick, which could help. But, I don't know, felt a little light. Zubac, this is a trade for next season. The Pacers are going to tank the rest of the way. And next season, next season, Zubac and Tyrese Haliburton. That's fantastic. Pascal Siakam's still with that group. He's an all-star again this year. 4-time all-star now. They've got pieces. I really like this move for the Indiana Pacers, taking advantage here. I'm sure the Raptors would have been involved if they didn't already owe so much money to a center on their team. So the Pirtle contract kind of handcuffing us there, certainly. Other moves to discuss. Kind of like this move for the Knicks, unfortunately. I do like it. Pelicans trading Jose Alvarado to the Knicks. I think like that really embodies what the Knicks are doing right now. Jose Alvarado, good defender, good depth piece for the team. They're missing some guards right now with injury. Jose Alvarado, pretty solid addition, I think, for the MSG faithful. Chris Boucher got traded today. He got traded to the Jazz. The Jazz plan on waiving him. Do not ask. Chris Boucher is going to get waived. Do not. I'm looking at the chat. Do not fucking ask. So we'll see where he actually ends up. Nick Richards did end up getting traded, just not to the Raptors. The Bucks traded Cole Anthony and Amir Kofi to the Suns for Nick Richards and Nigel Hayes Davis. That's not doing anything, I don't think, to be honest. The Suns are a good team. I guess they see something with Cole Anthony or Amir Kofi. I don't know. I'm not sure. Gabe Vincent lands in Atlanta. I can't believe Shams calls him... Oh, sorry. Lakers get Luke Kennard. That is the trade. Lakers get Luke Kennard for Gabe Vincent. Hawks create an $11 million trade exception, which is what they were looking to get out of this. Lakers get Luke Kennard, which I think is pretty solid for the Lakers, but again, maybe some questions about their perimeter defense, but solid. You know, when you have a guy like Doncic and you have players like LeBron, any move to kind of get additional floor spacing is not bad. And Kennard is a phenomenal three-point shooter. Pretty good pickup by the Timberwolves. They supplement the guard position by getting Rob Dillingham. They've also added Canadian Leonard Miller. 4 second-round picks. Also going the way... Rob Dillingham and Leonard Miller going to the... I'm reading this wrong. Rob Dillingham, former first-round pick, hasn't panned out as of yet. Guy the Raptors might have been interested in that draft. Hasn't worked out from career-wise. Leonard Miller, Canadian, on their way to the Bulls along with 4 second-round picks. Quality pickup for the Timberwolves getting Ayo Dosunmu there. Wondering, with that, I feel like not every trade is available to every team, but might have been interested in that one from a Raptors perspective, to be honest, with what was traded away. Felt like we could have maybe matched we could have matched that. But again, not every trade is available to every team. So we never know. And that's pretty much it from today's action. There was a bunch yesterday, which we've already talked about. that is where we're at. I'll read a few more questions here, and then I will get back into what the Raptors have accomplished today. Bulls have 11 players listed as injured for this game. Yes. If the Raptors don't win today, we might have to burn the franchise. Like they gotta win this game. Lots of players missing for the Bulls today. We got to get this done. We got to, we're in need of a win. We have been, with respect to Chicago and the players that they're going to play today, we have got to get this. We have got to get this win done today. A lot of players on the injury report. A lot of players out because they just got traded there. Sure, RJ Barrett's out for the Raptors with injury management, but this has got to be, the Raptors got to be in position to win this game. Like this is one you got to take. Right? Can't be playing around with this one. No doubt. Am I going to stream? I will be streaming for tonight's game. Yes, I will be streaming for tonight's Raptors and Bulls game. So we'll see it. We'll see it in action. Yes, deadline was at 3 p.m. Raptors love the buyout market. Buyout market doesn't love us. Usually players get bought out for a reason. Raptors haven't done anything to impress you with the trade deadline. It's from Maxime. So far, this team is not made for the playoffs. They need to do something to fix their fall apart in the second half of the games. They didn't do anything to impress you, but they also didn't do anything to unimpress you. Like, they didn't make any bad moves today. Now, I'm obviously being hyperbolic, but they better fucking win today. All right, so Raptors as a whole, this is how we'll sum up. Let's go through everything the Raptors did at the trade deadline. Let's go through everything the Raptors didn't do at the trade deadline. Reiterate where we stand, how we stack up to the rest of the Eastern Conference, and what we can expect going forward. Recapping it all, Raptors get 2 moves done ahead of the trade deadline. Like I said earlier on in the stream, there's 3 things to work on. 3 things that we had to focus on. Number 1, ducking the tax. Number 2, getting front court depth. Number 3, getting additional shooting. Number 1, ducking the tax, completed. Traded Abaji, had to attach a second-round pick, got under the tax. Felt like that was an inevitable move all throughout the season. Number 2, Raptors needed to get some front court depth. They addressed this not quite in the way that fans were looking for. Fans were looking for a 7-footer. Fans were looking for traditional big and size there. The issue was that wasn't really available for them for a reasonable price. They were looking at Yves Missy, Day'Ron Sharp, and Goga Bitadze, according to reports from Josh Bloomberg of TSN. Those guys were going to cost a first-rounder. It would have been a mismanagement of assets and an overpay to use a first-rounder on one of those guys. Instead, the Raptors use a late second-round pick, a Lakers second-round pick, to acquire a player in Trayce Jackson-Davis, who I think can be functional towards the Raptors' rotation. Number 3, they need some help with shooting. That hasn't been addressed. I didn't think it would be, to be honest, because it's really hard to get shooting. It's expensive to get shooting. So the Raptors have identified Trayce Jackson-Davis, a player that can reasonably provide some help to them in the front court department. No, it may not be, the 7-footer that a lot of people were looking for, and I get we still don't have a body that can really be thrown against some of the true physical, big teams with traditional bigs like the Joel Embiids, like in a way Nikola Vucevic now, Mitchell Robinsons, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Duren, etc. We don't really have a player to compete with those guys so long as Jakob Poeltl is out injured. So we kind of have to pray for Jakob Poeltl there. But Trayce Jackson-Davis does offer positives to the Raptors. Decent rebounder for his size. Okay defender for rim protection. Has a little bit more of a threat for switchability on defense compared to your traditional 7-footer. Solid passer for a big. Kind of like will be will be fine in Darko. Like, probably a good fit for Darko Rajakovic's offensive system and schemes with lots of these dribble handoffs, pick and roll play. Not a really efficient scorer on the interior, but I think it's a player that can help with the rotation, and it's another body to throw into the mix for the physical games that have been really wearing on Colin Murray-Boyles, Sandro Mamukilishvili, and Scotty Barnes as of late. Like, we've had lineups as of late where like the tallest guy on the floor is 6'7". At least we've addressed that. Sure, he's 6'9", not the 7 footer you're looking for, but again, I believe that as a player that can help with the Raptors, and they gave very, very, very little in order to get that player into their team. You know, people have been, and you can see it in the chat, maybe you've seen it throughout the stream, where people are saying, like, Raptors like did not do anything, they haven't done anything that's like impressed me, wowed me, right? They didn't, but they very easily could have done a trade that would upset you, that would set them back, like trading a first-round pick a few years ago for Thaddeus Young at the trade deadline. Very poor use of assets there. That trade didn't work out for the Raptors. So, like, there is a possibility they could have done something, but it's possible in doing something you'd feel even worse about the deadline than you do now after making two moves that, again, were fine. They were fine moves. Like I said earlier, grading this, I'd probably give this a C. They did the bare minimum. They got front court depth. They got under the tax. They didn't lose any significant assets. But you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference. Pistons got better today, or this week. The Knicks got better. The Celtics got better. The Cavaliers got better. The Sixers added in some players. They've won 5 games in a row. They're improving. The East is competitive right now. We're 3 games up on the play-in tournament spots, but we didn't really get better here. We addressed some front court needs, but that's really it. We just brought in an extra body there. Minimum of what the Raptors really needed to accomplish out of the day. How does that stack us up against the rest of the East? Well, Cavs were 3-0 against this season. Granted, they've been playing a lot better recently. Now they've got James Harden. Celtics were 0-3. Knicks were 0-3. Pistons, we haven't played yet. But when we play some of these higher teams, and, now we saw in that loss to the Timberwolves, we even saw it in the loss to the Magic you could go back to. When the game gets physical, and when the Raptors get into these more shootout environments against these better teams, they really do struggle. And they still haven't addressed being able to compete with those teams. So, really, I find it difficult for this team to be able to compete for a playoff series. They've got to get there still. They are 3 games up in the playing spot. There's a lot of games to go. I'd love for them to finish as a top 6 seed and still believe they're fully capable of doing that. But it is going to take some work. It is going to need some internal improvements. We haven't, brought in necessarily improvements from outsourced those improvements. We need to find those internal improvements. The Raptors have been leading the Knicks by double digits. They were leading the Magic by double digits. They were leading the Timberwolves by double digits and lost all those games. Those all need to be turned into wins, and we need to be able to address where things are going wrong there. Tough when some of the limitations are, you don't have the physical capabilities to compete sometimes. You don't have the shooting that provides the necessary offense. Your half-court system isn't providing as much as you need it to do. Brandon Ingram hasn't been as solid in the fourth quarters as he was early in the season. Is that, scouting report? Hey, if we just take away Brandon Ingram, this team can't do anything in the half court. That could be part of it as well. With all that information in mind, going to be difficult, I think, to compete for a playoff series in the East as long as the Raptors do get to that point. So people might be wondering, well, if they know this isn't going to be a team competitive for the playoffs, why didn't they do something? People like to always say you're either a contender or you're tanking. It's bad to be sitting in the middle. I push back a little bit on that. I think sometimes it's okay to improve your team and get better. You look at Scotty Barnes this season. Would Scotty Barnes be developing and having the season he's having if the Raptors weren't in these winning positions? Like if we were tanking again, would you be getting this much out of Scotty Barnes? I don't think so. So I think sometimes winning is fine and progressing internally is fine, especially when you've been tanking for the last couple of years and that really hasn't done much for your team. I think this has been a benefit to the team. I think the playoffs would be good experiences for the team, absolutely. And also, another reason against maybe making one of those big moves, it's possible Raptors could have identified a lot of these bigger moves, like a potential trade for Sabonis, and said that still doesn't make us a contender. So let's focus on the long-term outlook of the situation. Let's maintain those assets and work on addressing it in the future. I'm okay to not make these aggressive, risky moves during the regular season and wait until the offseason to get those sorts of trades done. Now, we've said this before. We've said we've needed action in the offseason, and at times we haven't gotten it. Bobby Webster, for me, I feel no ill will towards what he's done here, but you've assembled a roster that is lacking size and is lacking shooting. Welcome to the NBA in 2026. Those are two very important aspects of roster construction and building your team. You've got to get that done in the offseason now. You're setting a team up here that is having it's good vibes this season. They're 30-22. We were kind of expecting around a 500 team. We're better than that. And we're pushing for a playoff spot. And we're developing. There's way more promise now in Scotty Barnes. But it's also now time in 2026 to do this team justice and give them the necessary help to actually be a true threat. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting better. And I think we will get better the rest of the way. Again, feels like kind of bare minimum was accomplished at this trade deadline here as far as ducking the tax and front court depth. But we all see it. We all see where the issues are. It's obvious that the front office sees it as well. Getting some of these moves done sometimes is easier said than done, but you're in these high-paid, high-value positions for a reason. I can be patient till the offseason to do this stuff. A lot more patient than probably large portions of the Raptors fan base might be right now, but we're not at the level to truly compete in the East. Get those moves done to help us do that in the offseason. That's what got to happen. And for the rest of this season, I think a lot of the possible success does hinge on Jakob Poeltl's back, which is not looking good, but hopefully some positive signs out of him from the workout footage that we've seen so far. A lot of the season, I think, kind of hinges on Jakob Poeltl's back at the moment. And I think that's where this kind of settles in. That's where we kind of end off here. I've got nothing else to add. I'll go through a little bit more of the chat here, but I'm pretty comfortable. I feel like I've got all my thoughts out. I feel like I've answered a lot of the questions. We've talked it out. I think we're pretty much at our conclusion here. Last time the Raptors did anything to impress me, they got Kawhi Leonard. I was pretty impressed by getting Brandon Ingram, who was probably pretty close to making an all-star team, for getting him for one first-round pick. That seemed like a pretty solid move to me. All-star talent's hard to get. Getting one that cheap was a pretty impressive move by the front office, I think. The Raptors only have 3 players in my eyes that can play. Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, and Emmanuel Quickley. Well, Brandon Ingram was acquired for 1 pick, so that must have impressed you, Maxime. You're contradicting yourself. Raptors are counting on internal growth. They're a young team, so I think it's fair for now. Yeah, fair for now, but we've been waiting. It's been like a for now thing for a while. We need to start being a bit more aggressive in the summer. I'm not bringing Jesus into this, Giovanni. What the hell are we doing here? We say we lack shooters. We have shooters that are underperforming. That's true. That's also true. You can point some fingers at our team. Like we kind of did put a decent shooting team out of the season, but Grady Dick's underperforming, and Abaji, holy shit, this guy forgot how to shoot the basketball this season. Walter's just not really good enough in a lot of areas to keep getting playtime. He's been okay shooting this season, but Quickly's underperformed as well. Not wrong there. The East is so weak. I think the Raptors can make it to the conference finals. I think it'll be tough to compete physically and scoring-wise with some of the higher teams in the Eastern Conference. So it'll be tough. It'll be tough to do that. But they can. They can win a playoff series or two. I just think I don't really see a reality where they're favored in any playoff series. I think they'll be underdogs in any playoff series they end up getting. I don't think teams will be scared of getting us in the playoffs, sadly. All right, last one. Bobby didn't want to give a first rounder, so it's going to be tough this offseason. He showed a willingness. I mean, they put offers in for Trae Young. They put offers in for Anthony Davis, I'm sure. They put offers in for Sabonis. It wasn't like he was hell-bent on keeping them. It's just he's not overpaying. He doesn't want to overpay there. So sometimes we'll leave it at this. Sometimes the best move is the move you didn't make or not making a move at all. Rest of the season, I think there'll be some frustrations, but I think the important thing is to be reminded of the long term and where we can go next season. Now it's up to the front office to do that, but for the rest of the season, let's keep having fun. You know, not to be Russell Westbrook, but let's keep winning games. Let's get into the playoffs. Let's grow as a team. Let's grow as individuals here. Get that valuable experience and see how far it goes. Let's try it and see how far it goes. I think that's the best way to do it. On your way out, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. On your way out, please hit the like button. I have a really busy day at work today, but I was able to carve out this hour window to do some content. I like doing it. Hopefully you liked it as well. I just, just make me feel better by hitting the like button. If you're new to the channel, I'm typically live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time to cover all news surrounding the Toronto Raptors. I'll be live tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time to do just that. And we'll kind of look at reactions to Bobby Webster and how the trade deadline went. I hope that press conference is out tomorrow so that we can talk about that tomorrow. And I do watch songs for Raptors game. I'll be live later tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, as the Raptors take on the Chicago Bulls. Hope to see you there.